eye-opening experience. I mean, the sexism in basic training. I had a drill sergeant in my face telling me it doesn't have to be private and drill sergeant all the time. And I pushed him away and I said, yes, it does. And this is going to sound like some TV show, but I actually had to scrub a stairwell with a toothbrush.
Wow.
Oh yeah, so it's out there. I mean, and you know, for people want to say that, and I'm a veteran, I would never criticize somebody's choice to join the military. We all have our own reasons, but it's not what people think.
Well, there's many, many reasons why people join: education, paychecks.
The paychecks to provide for their family?
Right.
Sure. It can be attractive. I have not served in the military. I very nearly did, but I was basically, and I've said this before, my father, who was career military, basically said no. He said, no child of mine will be cannon fodder, and he insisted that I was not going in the military.
And that's exactly right, what you just said. No child of mine will be cannon fodder. And that's what our young people are.
Which is unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate because these young people have such ideals, and they have this idea in their head that's fed to them by this glossy, you know, shiny recruiter who drives around in a nice car and making all these promises with offering of, you know, $30,000, whatever they're offering now to get young men and women to join. And then they're put in this situation, and the people that put them there, they don't care.
And the thing of it is, too, that a lot of these recruiters go into the schools and recruit these young people where they have no concept of what they want to do. And they have them signed up before they even...
Right, and they have this idea from video games that war is going to be like a video game until they get there, and then they realize
it's completely different.
Holy.
Right. Yeah, but I mean that's not entirely fair. This was happening before there were ever video games.
You're right. It was happening. You're right. It was happening.
I'm leery of you blaming video games for
this
misconception.
No. I'm not blaming video games completely, but that's how they lure and they attract young people. They just, they're closing it now because it was only open for 2 years, but in Philadelphia, they had what they called the Army Experience Center. And I went there with my daughters for a protest against it. And before the protest, I went into the mall to see what it was about. And the location was prime. The mall itself was in a very working class, low-income neighborhood. Inside the mall, this Army Experience Center had 22 recruiters, even though they weren't there to recruit, assigned to this place. They weren't dressed in military uniforms. They were dressed in khaki pants and, you know, polo shirts. They looked like Best Buy salesmen. And it was...
But they are salesmen, basically.
They are salesmen, exactly. And it was right across from an indoor skate park and a Dave & Buster's. Okay, so it was a prime location to attract the kids from a neighborhood whose parents most likely had to work 2 or 3 jobs to keep food on the table. So, and at 13 years old, they were allowing young kids to come in and play these games. And the kids did not have to have parental permission to play the games. The only time they needed parental permission is if they went online to play the games. And when the kids came in, they would have to sign in, and they would sign their name, their address, their telephone number, and their email address, or whatever, all their contact information. And this thing was set up, and it looked like it was flashy. And you look through the front glass. I didn't go inside because I wasn't sure how I would respond to what I was, you know. Looking through the outside, there were all the computer games that you could sit at and play computers, and it was very flashy. And in the back, they have an Apache helicopter simulator and a Hummer simulator, all these simulated games where they can play Army and go in there and shoot and everything. And what that does, it gets the child ready to shoot somebody. And it desensitizes them to the act of shooting. Okay, so they become this great shot, and a recruiter's sitting there, oh yeah, that's really good, you could do this, or we could do this, or you can do this, and you could really be a part of something good. Meanwhile, he's working on his aim, you know, and he's 13 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old. And then he signs up because in his head he sees this recruiter dressed in this, you know, and he's done the game, he's a good shot, it's all glamorous. War is glamorous. And then he gets put on the front line and his body is blown up, or there's an innocent civilian that he's being forced, he's being told, well, you haven't killed anybody yet. If you want to be one of us, you have to kill this person, whether or not that person was an actual threat to the soldier or not. I mean, there's all kinds of reality injustices, if you will, when it comes to that.
So what percentage of the recruits do you think are tricked into signing up?
I think all of them.
Were you tricked into signing up?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I was tricked by
You're not sure
situation.
anyone can sign up for actual patriotic causes?
Well, yeah, they can. They can.
Independent of...
Are those
I mean, I would have guessed you'd have at
real?
least allowed 10 or 15% of the military to be there for legitimate reasons.
I don't know, but legitimate reasons for what? Maybe...
Because they want to participate in the defense of the nation, not because they need a job, not because they need an education, not because they got desensitized to military activities.
Right, but that's where the trick comes in, the defense of the nation. How can occupying a country on the other side of the world...
We're not talking about that specific action,
right,
because we went for years without being there.
Right.
I guess the fundamental question is, does the Party for Socialism and Liberation want the reform of the military or the removal of the military as a part of the United States? And if you're going to remove it, how do you defend your socialist economy from people that are going to try and hurt you?
You can't. You need a military for defense. You need a military for defense, but not for offense. And that's what, if you look at wherever we are, and we are in a lot of countries.
We are. But I haven't heard that from any of the website material or anything you've said. I mean, would we then have to trick kids to joining our defensive army?
No, I don't
think
so.
Because you have the same situation. Even if you're there for defense, you have the potential that you're going to kill another human being. That trauma is not going to go away, even if you're only in a defensive stance.
Right, sure. But the truth of what you're fighting for, you won't be in a war zone questioning why you're there.
But that's different from dealing with the trauma of having to kill someone or watching your buddy get blown up.
It's all trauma.
It's all trauma,
and it affects people for the rest of their life. And unfortunately, a lot of soldiers take their life because of that trauma, because they were put into that. Whether they decided to, I mean, it's all a volunteer army, so they all decided to. But when they come to that realization that, hey, wait a minute, this is not, how can my being over here, breaking down somebody's door, raiding their home, searching for weapons when there are no weapons there.
But if they're killing themselves, how can you say that's the motivation? You know, they're not there to talk to. The trauma of killing another human being in cold blood, whether it's in defense or offense, is extremely traumatic for people.
It is.
And I suspect soldiers dealing on home turf, killing people, are still going to be taking their own lives as a result of the trauma of that activity.
Probably.
You know,
but
I hear you talking about doing away with military action, doing away with the military.
Doing away with offensive military. We don't need to be occupying Afghanistan, and we don't need to be occupying Iraq. I mean, the report just came out about these minerals and the lithium, and that's a new find. That's been known for years. That's been known for years. And unfortunately, what the view is, not unfortunately, what March Forward's view is, or PSL's view is, that economic sanctions, like what was forced on Iraq before the war, and the war itself in Afghanistan,